I mean, what can you say if you're a fan of the Brooklyn Nets after this? I mean, what can you even call it after this game one, which was a fantastic game, just to say that. Game one, absolutely just crushing, deflating, gut wrenching, just horrendous type of loss you can have, not only in a regular season game, but in a playoff game altogether. That's exactly what happened to the Brooklyn Nets today. The Brooklyn Nets, unfortunately, lost their game one against the Boston Celtics today by the final score of 115 to 114. The Nets really had no answers at all, in the rebounding game and by the glass. Al Horford was having his absolute way. Down low in the front court, grabbing rebounds, getting put back shots, blocking shots. There was really nobody on that Nets team that was able to try to stop Horford, knock him around, or even try to put a body on him that was strong enough to throw Al Horford off his game. And then Marcus Smart, one of the biggest pests in the NBA, but the best or one of the best defensive players in the NBA, bar none. He did his job. He annoyed Kevin Durant enough throughout most of the game to make him put out bad shots, make him turn the ball over constantly, and he threw KD off his game for most of the game. Yeah, KD got some of his shots, and he ended up finishing the game with 23 points. But at the same time, KD was completely off his game. He was out of rhythm, and Marcus Smart just did a terrific job, and coupled that, the guy was hitting his threes the entire game. Marcus Smart just has a tendency for whenever he plays the Brooklyn Nets, I don't know what it is about him, he always gets up, plays his best, hits 3 points consistently, makes the right plays. Now, I'm going to give kudos to Kyrie Irving because he was getting booed out of that building. Now, while I don't agree with this little gesture that he did completely, I mean, as a fan of me, I thought it was pretty funny, but at the same time, I don't completely agree with it. It's not the right thing to do. He had himself a game today. He carried that team in the second half, and especially in the fourth quarter, where he finished with 36 points. He had a fantastic game, was shooting great, even had some steals. I believe he had 5 or 6 steals that game. He was passing and dishing the ball at a good rate. Kyrie Irving had himself a game. He showed up when the Nets needed him in clutch time. Seth Curry was another guy I'm going to give kudos to. Seth Curry, coming off that bum ankle, really didn't play a lot during the end of the season. He was on and off. He had himself a nice game too, scoring 17 points, dishing out 5 or 6 assists. He was playing consistent throughout the entire game, hitting his foul shots. He had himself a very nice game as well. So Seth Curry, I commend you. You had a pretty good game as well. You did a good job. And Nicholas Claxton, while he is a horrendous free throw shooter, and when it came down to clutch time, I would have probably taken him out and have a better free throw shooter in during the last minute or so of the game. Nick Claxton did a good job in terms of shot blocking, bringing some energy to the front court. Got some putback plays as well. Nick Claxton had himself a pretty solid game overall, especially on the defensive end. Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant probably had one of his worst games for the Nets in a while, in a long time. He was turning the ball over consistently, just didn't seem like he was in rhythm. He was bricking and missing shots a lot during the first half of the game. He was just completely thrown off his game. At one point, he actually had more turnovers than he did points. That's how thrown off a game that Kevin Durant was. He started getting it going a little bit in the second half, but really not to the degree that we know Kevin Durant can do it. And he was just off that entire game. So, I mean, it was just a very rough afternoon for Kevin Durant. Bruce Brown, guy opened his mouth at the beginning of the series, talking smack to the Celtics. He really didn't do anything the entire game. He did little to none. So all that smack talk that he was saying, he didn't back it up in game one. At all. I mean, Andre Drummond, guy got into foul trouble very early. kind of took him out of the game when he got committed 4 fouls in the first half, and really didn't see that much of him in the second half. He played sparingly, and they went with Claxton instead to give him more athleticism against Horford and against some of the bigs in that Celtics team. And at the same time, Patty Mills, he made a couple of shots. He really didn't do much that entire time. Goran Dragic, he made some good shots, but on the defensive end, he was a big-time liability. Kessler Edwards played some minutes. He was all right. He was okay on defense, not great. But the Nets just got dominated physically and mentally on the boards. Jason Tatum had himself a game. That guy is a hell of a player. Major big ups to Jason Tatum. He had a great game. Jaylen Brown had a pretty solid game as well. Tatum, I believe, had 29 points. I believe he had 12 rebounds. Jaylen Brown contributed with 21. Marcus Smart had 20. Al Horford had 18. So the Celtics did a good job in terms of their big four quartet. They all came to play today. So that's Kyrie Irving and Seth Curry, and to a smaller degree, Kevin Durant, but not the Kevin Durant we know. Bruce Brown didn't show up. The Nets didn't get enough contributions from their team this entire game. And nothing can say it best the way the Nets found a way to lose this game today. Now, obviously, you're going to give credit to Marcus Smart and Jason Tatum. They made the play to win the game at the end. But at the same time, the Nets just looked confused on that last defensive series. They looked like they weren't set. They didn't know what to do, and they were standing around most of the time. When Marcus Smart made that pass to Jason Tatum did a simple spin move around Kyrie Irving, who was standing there, standing still like he didn't know what was going on. Tatum makes the game-winning shot at the buzzer to win the game for the Celtics, and they get a big Game 1 win. And that's as deflating of a loss as possible for the Nets. And the one thing that I have a big problem with, the Nets did not make any type of adjustments to counteract what the Celtics were doing, because the Nets got out-physical the entire time, especially in the front court. And Steve Nash did not try to counter that at all by maybe putting LaMarcus Aldridge in for a little bit, dusting him off the bench and see if he can contribute anything, including maybe 10, 15 minutes off the bench. Didn't even try that. Maybe try Blake Griffin for a little bit, see what he can do. No, they just continue to play small ball and hope that they can get to the basket by their guys driving to the rim, but it didn't work. Even without Robert Williams there, they still could not be able to make an impact in terms of the front court game. Drummond being in foul trouble probably was a big reason too, but they had nothing going in that front court. And I expect in Game 2, Steve Nash to make some adjustments. And I think one of the key elements for the rest of the series is what is Ben Simmons' status, because Ben Simmons is widely known as one of the best and elite defenders in this league. Now, of course, it'd be his first game he'd be coming back, but at the same time, if you can get 10, 15 minutes of Ben Simmons being able to play good to great defense against guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and throw them off their games, you'll take it any day of the week, because you can take any type of good defense and any type of additions as you can to this Nets team. This is as frustrating and debilitating and horrendous and gut-punching of a loss that I've ever experienced and all Nets fans have experienced. This is like what happened last year in Game 7 against the Milwaukee Bucks, when Kevin Durant was just a toe off that three-point line of sending the Nets to the Eastern Conference Finals. In 2015, when we played against the Bulls in Game 5, and we lost that game. 2002, when we were in the NBA Finals, we lost Game 6, when we were in control of that game. Had a chance to send it back to Game 7 and had a chance to win that series. Didn't get it done. Nets have had a history of gut-wrenching, blow-to-the-stomach type losses, and this is just another one added to it. But the Nets will have a few days to clean things up, make some adjustments, and get ready for their Game 2 against the Boston Celtics on Wednesday night. So that's just my recap quickly of this Brooklyn Nets horrific, debilitating gut punch of a loss. And hopefully Steve Nash and this Nets team can come out with a lot more energy, a lot more intensity, and they can be able to rebound from what is obviously a very, very difficult and tough Game 1 loss. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys haven't already, please hit the like button on the bottom. Subscribe if you haven't already to NYG Jeffy T 3285, where we talk a lot of New York Giants, Brooklyn Nets, New York Mets, and WWE wrestling. And leave a comment below on how you feel about this latest of gut-wrenching losses by the Brooklyn/New Jersey Nets of the recent years. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your Easter Sunday. I hope you enjoyed it with your families and your friends. And take it easy, and hopefully the Brooklyn Nets can bounce back in Game 2. Have a great rest of your night.